I thought that I had seen everything in crypto until I stumbled on a secret XRP plan involving billions of dollars. If what I found is real, we might be on the verge of an XRP supply shock like we've never seen before. Let me back up and tell you how this all started. Now, as someone who's been in the crypto trenches for many years, and as an XRP holder myself, I'm always sniffing around for what's brewing behind the scenes. Because in crypto, the real action often happens before we even see it in the charts. So, the other day, I'm scrolling through X, Twitter, whatever we're going to be calling it these days, and I see a post from this guy, 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏. Now, if you don't know Vincent, he's a pretty respected software engineer in the XRP community. Kind of like one of those people whose kind of tweets make you stop and think. He wrote, "You haven't seen a supply shock yet," referring, of course, to XRP. Now, just that, no context to it, just a bold statement, just hanging there in my feed. Now, if you are, like me, hearing supply shock and XRP in the same sentence, it's kind of like hearing someone yell fire into a crowded theatre. It grabs your attention. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, what does this guy know that maybe we don't? So, naturally, I'm start digging in, and down the rabbit hole I went. Tweets, articles, you name it. Anyway, what I discovered, it actually turned out to be one of the most eye-opening XRP stories that I've actually seen in a rather long time. It all centers around a new project called Evernorth, and it might just change the game for XRP. I'll break this down in plain English, because trust me, it's worth understanding here. Now, Evernorth is a new company that is backed by Ripple, the company that is behind XRP itself. Now, in late October, Evernorth announced plans to merge with a SPAC, basically a shell company for going public. So it can actually list on the stock market under the ticker XRPN. And yes, they specifically chose the ticker, or a ticker, that basically spells XRP with an N at the end. Make of that what you will. Now, their goal, raise a whopping $1 billion to become the largest XRP treasury in the world. Now, when I first read that, $1 billion for an XRP treasury, my eyes, they kind of went pretty wide. That is a whole lot of firepower aimed at XRP. But the next detail is what really got me. Ripple, along with Ripple's co-founder Chris Larsen, are actually contributing to this fund, but not with cash, but no, with XRP. In fact, at least within just a week of the announcement, Evernorth had already received about $1 billion worth of XRP tokens, all handed over. It wasn't bought on the open market. Why does that matter? Well, think about it this way. If Evernorth had raised $1 billion in cash and then bought $1 billion off of XRP from exchanges, well, the price would probably go crazy from all of the buying pressure. It would be like a whale super feeding frenzy then, right? But instead, they basically said, here is the XRP directly. There is no need to buy it on the open market. It was kind of like moving a treasure from one vault to another quietly, without bidding up the price for everyone else to see. At first, I kind of shrugged. Right? If they're not actually buying XRP on the open market, then maybe there's no immediate impact on the price, right? Well, no. Supply shock, no fireworks, just some internal shuffling of XRP from Ripple's pockets to Evernorth's new vault. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. As I read on, more and kind of pieced things together, I realized that this might just be the setup. The calm, before the potential storm. You see, Evernorth hasn't actually gone public yet. Now, it's slated to complete this merger and effectively do its IPO by Q1 of 2026. That's only really a few months away, and an IPO means that they're going to raise real money, like billions of dollars from investors who want a slice of this XRP treasury idea. Now, here is the kicker. What is Evernorth going to do with those billions of dollars of investors' money? Well, buy XRP on the open market, lots of it, essentially, right? Evernorth will take a cash, at least in cash, from investors, buying its stock, and then turn that around and use that cash to purchase XRP's token out there in the wild. Now, it's like at least converting Wall Street money into crypto, specifically for XRP. Now, let's go ahead and put this into perspective. If they raise, let's say, $1 billion, just to keep the math really simple here, by the way, then they would go shopping for XRP. That is $1 billion of new demand flooding into the market. And they won't be buying $10 or $100 any time soon, right? They would actually be likely executing rather huge orders, possibly, over a period of time. But still, it's a major league buying pressure, right? A buy wall that is the size, at least that size, it can do some real damage to anyone trying to sell into it. At the current prices, hypothetically, $1 billion could scoop up close to $500 million XRP, give or take, depending on price movements, while buying, of course. Now, 2 billion XRP, or $500 million XRP, I should say, $1 billion. Now, sure, that's not all going to happen at once, is it? Nobody in their right mind would market buy that much in a single day without pushing the price, of course, to the moon. Now, they might do this very gradually, algorithmically, right? But the point still remains. It's a whole ton of XRP. And where would those XRP tokens go? Into Evernorth's treasury, presumably locked down for the long haul, since the whole point is to create the largest XRP treasury. Now that means that once it is bought, those XRP are effectively off of the market, at least until Evernorth decides to sell it, if it ever does. So they're just removing liquidity, big time. Now, this is where the term supply shock really enters the chat. Supply shock is basically when suddenly demand skyrockets or the supply plummets, or sometimes both. And the usual equilibrium is, just thrown out of the window. Now, here we are looking at a scenario where demand could skyrocket, big money buying, right? While the available supply of XRP for sale potentially plummets because a lot of it gets locked away and other holders may start hoarding it in anticipation. Honestly, it's kind of like the perfect recipe for a price squeeze. Right? Imagine everyone at the buffet grabbing for at least the last few slices of pizza at the same time. The prices, in that scenario, are like someone behind the counter changing the price tag higher every few seconds because so many people want that final slice. Now, you might be thinking, haven't we heard all of this supply shock stuff before? But it is true. Crypto folks, myself included, do love to toss that term around whenever there's even a whiff of a shortage of the supply. But this feels a little different, doesn't it? Because it isn't just a meme or a bunch of retail traders that are hyping something up. No, it's an actual structural market catalyst that is being set up. In fact, other savvy XRP watchers have pointed out the raising funds to buy XRP later was likely always going to be the plan. Right? Our old friend SBI Holdings, which is one of Ripple's biggest partners in Japan, announced that they're in this for $300 million. But crucially, that's $300 million in cash, not XRP, meaning that SBI intends to give real dollars to Evernorth, which presumably will be turned into XRP purchases. Now that's a concrete commitment from a major player. So we have $300 million from SBI on deck, possibly more from others in the IPO, and a mechanism, Evernorth, to funnel all of that into XRP. Meanwhile, Ripple's initial contributions of XRP were just to get the ball rolling without causing a market stir. Pretty clever, right? All the while, I'll consider, or at least we should consider, the backdrop here. Right? Many experts believe that the liquid supply of XRP is already kind of tight. Right? Ripple releases a controlled amount of XRP each month from their escrow, but they also have programs to buy some back or incentivize partners. Now, a lot of the XRP that is held by long-term believers or used in cross-border transfers by banks and payment companies via RippleNet and ODL. Plus, after that big legal win in 2023, when XRP was declared not a security, at least for sales on the public exchanges, that is, a lot of folks kind of snatched up XRP and have been holding it ever since. I've noticed it, anecdotally too, that people in the community talking about moving their XRP off of the exchanges into cold storage, waiting for the big one, and generally when price isn't actually exploding, traders lose interest, leaving mostly the hodlers in the game. So yeah, supply might actually be tighter than it appears. Now, let's throw a hungry hippo like Evernorth into that pond and see what happens. It's not hard to really imagine the water level dropping really quickly. The metaphorical hippo, in this case, being the massive demand soaking up all of the additional liquidity or lack of liquidity. And if that's not enough, there's also talk of XRP ETFs on the horizon. Can you imagine that? If an exchange-traded fund for XRP gets approved, well, it would have to actually hold XRP as reserves. That means more buying and holding, like it's another big institutional entity. Right now, we've seen what the anticipation of a Bitcoin ETF did for Bitcoin's price, right? People went absolutely nuts, just even on the rumor alone, right? And obviously it was a buy the rumor, sell the news. We saw a 20% dip in Bitcoin's price when the ETF went live. So prepare yourself for all kind of outcomes, I guess. But now let's just picture an XRP ETF becoming a reality just around the same time as Evernorth doing all of its thing. That's like two giant vacuum cleaners in the market instead of just having one. By this point in my research, my mind was racing. I was like, is this really happening? Are we set up for the perfect storm right here? And it is rare to find something in crypto that feels both inevitable and still under the radar. I even popped into our free educational Discord server. By the way, there's a link in the description. And I wanted to sanity check all of this with the community. Shameless plug, of course, I do know, hey, it's free and, it's full of sharp people. Anyway, I asked, right, have we seriously not seen an XRP supply shock yet? And could this Evernorth situation be the catalyst? Right, we had some pretty great debates about it. Some people were just as intrigued as I was, tossing out different angles that I hadn't necessarily considered. Others were a little bit more skeptical, pointing out that sometimes these grand plans, they fizzle out or take way longer than a lot of people expect. One buddy in the Discord actually joked, if an XRP supply shock really does hit, exchanges are gonna run out of XRP and might even go down from the volume. Better to have a backup exchange ready. And you know what? He has a point, joke or not. It reminded me of something rather important. Exchange reliability when things go crazy. Now, I've got this personal rule, some of you probably already know. Always have plan A, plan B, and plan C for the exchanges. If there's one thing that I've learned over the years, it's that when insane volatility strikes, some exchanges, they tend to freeze up or suddenly enter maintenance mode. Not what you really want when you're trying to make a move, is it? So I keep accounts on multiple different platforms, all set up and verified, just in case. For example, I'm on Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, Bluefin, BitGet, among many others too. Now those, of course, are affiliate links, exchange-listed links on my website that do support the channel and cost you nothing extra, by the way. That's full disclosure, like we like to do here on the channel. But I do genuinely use them as part of my multi-exchange strategy. Now, I don't want to be scrambling to open up a new account in the middle of a price frenzy. I want those options ready beforehand, like having multiple exits, at least exit doors, in a club if someone yells fire. So check the link out in the description and get yourself set up. All right, exchange PSA over, back to XRP, because Vincent van Gog's little one-liner was starting to sound less like hype, and a little more like a genuine heads up. Now, you haven't necessarily seen a supply shock yet. The emphasis on yet kind of gave me a few chills. It's like he's saying that everyone's, or at least everything up until now, has just been a kind of prelude. So, picture that. All of the past pumps, the rallies, to a couple of dollars or so, the crash goes all the way back down. What if those were just the warm-up, right? And the main event is still coming, where a tidal wave of institutional money just slams into XRP and doesn't stop buying. Now, of course, we do have to balance this with some reality, right? Because even Vincent noted that he's not sure about the timing of it. Maybe Evernorth's IPO cash gets deployed slowly, or even delayed, right? Maybe an XRP ETF, if it's coming at all, takes a little bit longer than many expected to actually gain approval or even traction. Although, November 13th, everyone. Right, these things, they are not guaranteed to line up perfectly, are they? In crypto, surprises, both the good and the bad, they are kind of the norm, right? The best laid plans can get derailed by anything from regulatory curveballs to global economic shifts. I mean, we've seen seamlessly invincible exchanges suddenly collapse. Yes, I'm looking at you, FTX, never going near that exchange ever again. And sure thing, right? At least the sure thing projects, they face setbacks, right? So I guess nothing is ever certain until it actually happens. Now, this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video has been financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. So, with all that clear, here's how I'm looking at it then. I see a convergence of events that could create a perfect supply crunch for XRP. Now, I'm not saying that it will definitely happen, but for the first time in a long time, it feels genuinely exciting and, a little bit nervous at the same time, I guess, about what is potentially on the horizon for this coin. It's like almost like finding out that there's a plot twist halfway through a movie, right? The protagonist, in our case that's XRP, has been struggling through the story, facing the SEC villain, dealing with the market's ups and the downs. But now we have the audience, and it gets a hint that in the next act, our hero might actually gain a secret weapon, like a massive wave of buying pressure that changes the game forever. This Evernorth move, if it plays out the way that it could, might be the secret weapon, right? Now, it doesn't guarantee a happy ending because nothing ever does, but it could significantly tilt the odds in XRP's favor. Now, I remember late 2017 when XRP shot up to around $3. It felt unreal, like overnight the whole world went XRP crazy. But that spike was largely driven by retail FOMO, people who didn't really want to miss out, right? Now, what we're talking about now is different. It's potentially sustained buying from entities that plan to hold for the longer term. That's a whole different ballgame to get altogether, right? It's like the difference between a summer thunderstorm and a climate shift. One is flashy and short-lived, and the other is gradual, but far more impactful. And here is another thought. If a supply shock does hit and XRP's price goes wild, then it'll likely draw in the masses once again. So media headlines, social media buzz, the whole 9 yards. Suddenly, every crypto newbie and their grandmother will want a piece of XRP because it's shooting up. And that could push things even further, at least in the short term. Exciting, absolutely, but also a time to stay smart. Those are the moments when I remind myself not to get too greedy or too fearful. Just stick to my plan. The biggest takeaway from this whole journey, or shall I say adventure, is that sometimes huge events in crypto, they start quietly. Ripple and Evernorth basically set the stage for a potentially explosive scenario without much fanfare. Now, it was out there in the open, but unless you connected all the dots, it was easy to kind of overlook. Now, I'm glad that I connected those dots. Now I'm watching Evernorth's next steps a bit like a hawk. Q1 2026. That's the timeline that they've given for going public. That's right around the corner. Now I'm watching for any news about that IPO, any hints of partnerships, or how they plan to allocate and raise the funds, right? Or at least allocate the raised funds, I should say. Now I'm also in listening for any chatter about the XRP ETFs or similar products, right? These are the signals that will tell us if the supply shock theory is about to become reality, or if it's kind of going to simmer on the back burner for a little while longer. Either way, of course, I'm just thrilled to be here for the ride. The crypto world never really ceases to surprise me. After all of these years, right, something like this can still make me feel like a kid finding a hidden level in a video game. Now you can bet that I'm going to keep you all updated on what happens here, whether it's through another video or discussions in our community. And hey, maybe I'm just overhyping it. You've got to consider that possibility too, right? Maybe the whole market will just shrug even at $1 billion of buying pressure, although I do doubt that. Or maybe the plans change a little bit, right? But you know what? Being aware and being prepared is better than just being caught off of guard. Now, if you've stuck with me this far, then I hope you're feeling just as intrigued as I am about all of this. So, here is my plan. I'm not making any rash moves. I'm going to be holding on to my XRP, keeping my exchange contingency plans at the ready, and staying glued to the news feeds. Right? I've got a feeling that the first half of 2026 is going to be very interesting for us XRP folk, one way or another. And I'm here for it, with my popcorn ready to show, at least to kind of see, I guess, how it all plays on out. No matter what happens next, it's moments like these that remind me why I fell in love with the crypto space in the first place. There's always another twist just around the corner. Now guys, you can do me a favor by smashing the like button, subscribing so you don't miss the next crypto adventure, and I will catch you all in the next one.